Pinball. Is there a game just as beloved by universally everyone as much as pinball? The flashing lights, the sounds, the satisfaction of slamming your fingers into the button to make the ball go flying around? It's impossible to not play a game of pinball without sitting there for hours saying, just one more game. So, why not bring that joy to consoles? Yep, today we're gonna specifically check out some pinball games on Nintendo consoles. Whether they be from my childhood or I'm just discovering them for the first time today, let's check out some of Nintendo's pinball games. Starting off with a classic, Pinball. Just Pinball, starring a very orange Mario. Pinball on NES is about as simple as you can get, but in its simplicity still lies a very fun and addicting game. Especially back in the 80s, I could only imagine the joy of going to an actual arcade and spending hours playing real pinball, only to come home and play it some more. Pinball addicts had it really good. Not much to really talk about though, to be honest. The game is about as simple could be. It would have been nice to have some music as opposed to just random 8-bit noises. But I guess if you really want to immerse yourself, just turn on some Def Leppard and call it an evening. There's also a cute minigame involving Mario and, I guess, Pauline, where you get to play Breakout. So that's cool. Moving on! Pinball Quest on the NES. Now, here's a game I never knew about up until today. The first thing that caught my attention was an RPG mode, so I of course had to check that out. And we have a charming little story of these goblins stealing away a princess, and you play as a little ball hero to save the day. You need to defeat enemies and destroy objects to find key items, all with the core gameplay, of course, being pinball. And it's pretty charming. At first, you need to break this grave and rescue a king who tells you what to do. But then you gotta deal with precise pinballing. You gotta hit the ball in this very specific pathway to fight the enemies. But it's honestly really difficult to do. And after I get up there 200 tries later, it's only a matter of seconds until the ball falls back down. And I cry a little bit. That is until I realized you could move the paddles up and down at will. Well, that would have been nice to know. Once I figured that out, though, the game became much more bearable. It's really cute seeing this medieval adventure take place in the world of pinball. There's even power-ups you can buy in a shop like a traditional RPG. This game really took me by surprise, and I couldn't help but smile all throughout. There's definitely a challenge to the game that I wasn't really in the mood to do. There's a lot more ascending the board through very specific pathways, but with a ton of annoying enemies, like these little blue fellas that just grab your ball and hold it for a few seconds. Kinda frustrating after a while. There is a regular pinball mode, however, if you just want to shut off your brain and play pinball for a few. But if you want a real challenge and adventure, the RPG mode is where it's at. Pinball Quest doesn't disappoint. Here's Kirby's Pinball Land. Yet again, another simple pinball game, this time on the Game Boy, meaning it's pinball on the go. There isn't anything crazy or unique with this game, to be honest, but back in the day, playing Kirby pinball on a car ride was all we really needed. Life was so much simpler back then. It is another pinball game where the objective is to try and ascend the board, which I guess gives the player a reason to play for more than 2 minutes without turning the game off. And it's hard as hell! I've never struggled this hard with a Kirby game. I'm ashamed. Pokemon Pinball on the Game Boy Color. You get to choose between the red or blue version, which is honestly hilarious, especially considering, just like with the real red and blue, the two versions are completely identical, just with a few different Pokemon. Apart from the core pinball gameplay that feels really solid, Pokemon Pinball has a ton of cute features to make the fans happy. There's random Pokemon around the board that interact with the ball, and even a catching mechanic. Yeah, a Pokemon will spawn in the middle of the board and you need to hit it 3 times without dying in order to catch it. Complete with sound effects and all. Once again, another fun pinball game for the road. Now let's head to the world of unreleased video games with Battle Pinball. The game focuses on some of Japan's biggest heroes like Ultraman, Kamen Rider, and Gundam, who weren't exactly popular across seas, so I guess it makes sense as why the game wasn't brought over. There's actually a ton of different games starring these characters in Japan. They were a big deal. In comparison, it's like if in America we had a game with Spider-Man, Batman, and Danny Phantom. The game has you needing to save the world from evil forces, via pinball, I guess. Why not? It's really fun flinging the ball into these monsters and seeing them blow up. Without getting ahead of ourselves, I always thought Mario Pinball was the first to do this, so it's nice to see other pinball games be ahead of the curve. It is another game where you need to ascend the map, but for the most part, it's less obnoxious than Pinball Quest. The boss fights are also surprisingly epic, needing to take down these giant robots before they do a super move on you. There's a lot here that can keep you entertained. I don't care if America has no idea who Kamen Rider is, this game alone would have made them famous. Let's hope somehow Battle Pinball makes a return in the future. Although I highly doubt it.
Mario Pinball Land!
The game that made everyone think, man, Mario really can do everything. The game actually has a story, believe it or not, with Mario and friends being squished into this device that crunches their bones and deforms them into balls. Who signed off on this? Anyway, the princess gets captured again, and Mario needs to save her, but this time in ball form. The game has that elusive Nintendo charm that a lot of these pinball games have lacked so far, that unfortunately I can't really describe. The gameplay feels the most fluid and satisfying out of all of the games we've checked out so far. I think it's a mix of the ball really flying around the board so there's no real downtime, as well as the board itself being fairly small, so when the ball is flying around, it isn't just hitting a bunch of empty space. Your main objective is to take out all the enemies on screen, collect the star, and move along to the next area. It's simple, yet effective. The stages are all gorgeous to look at, and the sound effects really are the icing on the cake. Almost everything makes some kind of noise, and in that way, it mimics a traditional pinball machine that's always attacking your senses. It's tons of fun, and it's pretty easy to see why, to many people, this is the definitive Nintendo pinball game. You know what isn't, though? The Pinball of the Dead, a pinball game based off of House of the Dead. It's unfortunately just a little too boring. There's not a lot of interactables on the board, which is kind of important in a video game rendition of an arcade game. It feels like a real-life pinball machine, which unfortunately doesn't translate to hours of fun in a video game. The visuals are also so pixely, and the audio sounds bit-crushed to hell. So even if the gameplay was fun, being a pain to look at and listen to kinda means most people will play the game for 2 minutes and call it quits. Which is what I did. Sorry. Ooh, now this is the game that everyone wanted, right? I mean, it's only been years since Metroid Prime was released, so to itch that scratch, Nintendo gave us the long-awaited Metroid Prime Pinball. No, nobody wanted this. But hey, as long as the game is fun, I guess at the very least it could create a cult following, and some people would love the game. But not even that! The game is so boring and mediocre, especially for coming out on the DS. You had the capability to be good. The game uses 2 screens, which again could have been an interesting gimmick if done properly, but I mean, just look at it. I don't even need to say much. The game looks like a Flash game, or even a garbage minigame you would play in an actual Metroid Prime game as a bonus or something. Since the Prime series goes for a more realistic approach visually, the game has the most drab and uninspired visuals in a pinball game I think I've ever seen. Like, what is this board? Why is it so small with nothing interesting happening on screen? It blows my mind that this game was not only made, but even thought of. And if you want a physical copy, you may need to spend over $100. This is easily the weakest pinball game we've checked out today, and it's considering that the Metroid series is a first-party Nintendo game. And this is how they treat her? I'm sorry, Samus. You deserve better. Maybe next time. Oh no, wait. So I didn't want to end on a down note, so to finish up this video, let's check out Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. It's an upgraded and more polished version of the Pokemon Pinball Red and Blue. Personally, I'd have to say that this is the best Nintendo pinball game. The board is so busy with so many Pokemon doing cute things on it. Once again, you can catch Pokemon by hitting the ball up the right alley, I guess, by hitting the Pokemon with the ball enough times, and once again, the iconic Pokemon sound effects are there, and it's so charming. You can also push an egg into this cave and it'll hatch out another Pokemon to add to your collection. It's just so cute. That's the best word I can use to describe the game. My eyes are always on the lookout for a hidden Pokemon, or just to see what the cute little guys are up to. The game is loaded with charm while still maintaining the classic feel of pinball that we all love. Sometimes, less is more. But also, more is more. I don't know what I'm talking about. And those were some of Nintendo's beloved and not so beloved pinball games. What did you think? And are there some that I left out? Recreating an arcade experience through a video game can be difficult, but a majority of these games prove that it can not only be done, but done in all kinds of charming and unique ways. Thanks for watching! If you liked the video, please subscribe for more, and in the meantime, I'm gonna go hit some balls. Wait.